All right, everyone, we're back. I hope either you had a nice lunch break previously with Berenice and Lisa, or you're taking a lunch break now with Burke. I mean, really up to you, but I hope you got some food sometime. I know these are our lunch hour sessions this year. Um, I'm so excited for this, mostly because I don't think we've ever had a B Corp session before at Longmont Startup Week, and I'm super excited to have Burke Pemberton here. He's the Strategic Partnerships and Governance Chair for Be Local Colorado, which is a team of business leaders engaging certified B Corps across, well, the whole state, I think. And he's also the CFO at Stock Financial, and I'm sure he'll talk a little bit more about that. But I'm just going to turn it over to Burke. At any point, if you want to leave comments, I know he may ask questions, throw them in the chat. This is either on YouTube or on Facebook. Please comment or ask questions, and we'll get to them as he continues through his presentation. So, Burke, I'll just turn it over to you.
Thanks, Morgan. Appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Yep. Looking great.
Okay. And do we have an idea of just kind of like who's in the room, or is it local businesses in Longmont, or?
Yeah, definitely. And in the area, I see some folks out on Facebook, and I see some folks on YouTube. So it'll be probably mostly our local region.
Okay. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for coming. I can't see you, so if you have questions, put them in the chat, and we'll try and get to those. I'm here to talk to you about B Corp certification and what is it? What does it mean? And so I will start by saying that the B universe is a little bit of a branding nightmare. So even the session today said B Lab Colorado. So that's not a thing. I'm with a group called Be Local Colorado, and we are basically a volunteer board of directors that acts like a sort of a chamber of commerce for all of the B corporations that are in the Rocky Mountain region. And there's currently over 120 of us. I did find out that there aren't any in Longmont, so if anybody wants to win that title after today's session, that would be awesome. Go for it. So I'm going to sort of talk to you about, like, what is becoming a B Corp? What is B Corporation certification? What is the value that it brings to your organization? And then, what's the process like of becoming one? And then I'm going to speak a little bit personally from my own company's experience. And so once again, my company is a B Corp, and we applied for the B Corp certification. We are B Corp certified. We go through that process every year, and I've become a member of that community through my own personal organization, and you can too. Okay. So let's get started here. So B Lab. B Lab is the nonprofit organization that basically governs the B Corp certification body, and created the certification system and process whereby organizations can become B Corp certified, and they conduct the assessment to assure, and occasionally my company actually got audited by B Lab a year ago. I think it was a relatively painless process, but they're making sure that everybody's actually doing what they're saying they're doing in order to become a B corporation. So this is sort of the roadmap for the long term, and it's similar to, like, if you're familiar with, like, organic, certified organic, or LEED certified, where they had to sort of create something that was ultimately going to drive change in the market. And the tagline for B Lab is, and benefit corporations, B corporations, is always business as a force for good. And so the first sort of step was, developing a market infrastructure, and that's hard, right? And so you can't just do that all at once. You have to get traction. You have to get user base. You have to build a community. You have to create the tools so that people can, better themselves over time. And then ultimately, it's about changing the consumer behavior and consumer habits, and making sure that people are, looking out to buy products and services from B corporations. And so, yeah, we kind of view this as like a natural progression of business, where the sort of green/orange, to use a term from Reinventing Organizations, sort of the different types of business models that have existed over the centuries. We're heading into this sort of teal 21st century stakeholder capitalism, away from shareholder capitalism, and extractive, exclusive, and monocultures, and trying to build a regenerative and inclusive economy. And so we really do focus on both environmental regeneration and social inclusivity as a business force for good. And I kind of mentioned, some of those other brands out there. So over the last 20 years, you've seen a lot, Rainforest, Forest Stewardship Council, Energy Star. You're probably familiar with a lot of these logos. And now, we're looking beyond just products and services and certifying those, and actually trying to say, are the companies putting their money where their mouth is and living up to the values that they say they are, and meeting our standards as consumers. So just if there's any confusion still, at its basic level, what is a certified B corporation? It's similar to, like, for businesses, what fair trade is to coffee, or what LEED is to a building. Okay, so you can get your business certified as a B corporation. There are, in the world, globally, there are over 3,400 B Corps in 150 industries, 70 countries, with one goal. To, like I said, make an inclusive, sustainable, regenerative economy and use business as a force for good. And this is some of the common brands out there. So if you recognize Danone North America, Danone is a Swiss company. They make Dannon yogurt. They own Horizon Milk, and quite a other natural brands that you see coming out of sort of the Boulder County area. They're right in our own backyard in Broomfield. Techstars is local and not local. They're a national brand. New Belgians right up north of Longmont, in Fort Collins. Everybody knows Fat Tire. But yeah, so this is a lot of the sort of famous B Corps that are out there. Just so you know what sort of company you would be keeping if you became a B Corp. Okay, so next I want to talk about sort of the process of sorry, not the process, the value. So, what do you get for being a B corporation? What's in it for me? With them. So we're going to talk about sort of 5 key benefits that our members see. One is just becoming a part of a global community. I referred to Be Local Colorado as sort of a chamber of commerce, and in my role as the chair of strategic partnerships, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about an event that I'm putting together right now that y'all could come to. It's also a virtual event, unfortunately, right now. But just building a community of like-minded individuals. How can we network together? How can we do business together? How can we support each other and grow impactful businesses? We're going to talk about how if you really want to improve your social and environmental impact, how can you benchmark it and improve it through the B Corp certification? How can you differentiate yourself from competitors? And I'm going to share a really good story with you about how Stoke has been able to do that and gain some pretty major national clients as a result. How you can attract and engage talent, and ultimately protect the mission of your organization. And I think there's some pretty good examples in here that we're going to get into that some business leaders maybe wish that they had done this and before it was too late. Okay, so when we talk about a global community of leaders, we're serious. There's B Corp legislation that's been passed in all over the world. There's 500 B Corps in Central and South America, which we call Sistema B. There's 200 B Corps in the UK. There's 400 in Europe, 300 in Australia, New Zealand. We even have presence in Taiwan, East Africa, and Canada. There's 300 B Corps. So Oh, I just looked at that picture. I realized I was at that event. I remember being there. It was in Philadelphia last year at it's our bee community gathering. So that's actually not even a Canadian picture. um, so yeah, let's see, benchmark and improve impact. So the first thing you can do, and a lot of people, I think, maybe say like, oh, we're not doing that stuff, so I don't want to put it out there, right? Like I don't want to say, I don't want people to be able to see that we're not doing things in a socially conscious or environmentally friendly way. So it doesn't have to be that way. You can take the bee impact assessment to get a baseline of your organization, and you don't even necessarily have to apply. You can just get the assessment and say, okay, here's where we have ways to improve, and there is a minimum score that you have to achieve to become a B Corp. And so the folks at B Lab will tell you what you need to do right out of the gates if you want to build your social environmental impact. And then they have ways to help you to set goals so that you can improve in those specific areas, and ultimately you can track your performance over time. And so again, nobody comes out of the gates the most impactful organization. It takes time, and as you can see, some of these B Corps didn't start out doing really well, and they were able to improve over time. I think Ben and Jerry's is a really cool story because they are one of the few companies that ever got acquired. That got acquired by Unilever, and rather than just absorb, get absorbed into Unilever's culture, they sort of use Ben and Jerry's as their cultural think tank. And Ben and Jerry's has maintained its B Corp status, and a lot of the social, cultural, and business practices that they've evolved have been able to be absorbed into Unilever. And so that's the kind of market driving change that the people who created the B Corp certification were really trying to create. So there's a ton of data out there that says, customers want to support brands that share their values. So 90th percentile brand performance for certified B Corps, faster growth in sales. And I can honestly tell you from my own personal experience that as soon as we got B Corp certified, my company Stoke, we were reached out to by Subaru to do a national, my company does high performance real estate consulting. And so we were asked to do a strategic sustainability plan and implement it for all of their franchise retailers across the country, because they created their Subaru Love commitment, and one of their standards was that they had to pick vendors in their supply chain who were values aligned with what they were trying to do. And so they went and searched the B Lab, B Corporation database for sustainability, real estate sustainability consultants, and they found my company. And I think we even gave them a little bit higher quote than someone else they were looking for, but because of everything they were seeing through the B Corp certification, they picked us, and that ended up being a great account. Still working with them. So differentiate from competitors, vote every day brand campaign. So B Corp has lots of sort of initiatives that we put together to inspire your people to buy the B brand, and saying hey, if you're out there buying products and services, vote with your dollar, just like Subaru did. Buy B Corporation, buy B Corp certified, and you're going to start to see more and more of those brands. I was taking a shower this morning, and I looked at the shampoo that my wife got for our little kids, and it's like a environmentally friendly kids shampoo, and it had a B certified B Corporation logo right there on the bottle, and I was like, huh. I notice it now. It's like it's the brand is growing, and honestly, this is, aside from the Subaru story I just shared, this is the biggest benefit we've had at my company, is talent attraction. The number one thing people say when they apply for jobs in my organization is that they were excited that we were a B Corp and they wanted to come work for a B Corp. So it means something to people. It tells people who say, when I wake up in the morning, I want to go do something that has a meaningful impact. I want to create change in the world. I don't want to just go to work and make money and go home and die. I want to have an impact. And B Corp is one of the main things that people are looking for when they're having that mindset of like, how can I do better? How can I do good? So legal standard. Yeah. So, basically there's two kinds of B Corps. One is sort of an add-on, which is B Corp certification, which is what my company has. We're an LLC, or you can actually change over to, it's a corporate form like a C Corp or an S Corp. It's called a benefit corporation, and so we're going to get into that a little bit. But states, I think we're up to like 40 something states, like almost all 50 states have benefit corporation or B corporation legislation. And it actually creates a legal framework for companies to do good. And in its simplest form, the way I can describe that is, if the way C Corps and other corporations are set up, if the C-level executives, the officers, do not maximize profit above all else, they can be sued by their shareholders. That is a legal construct that we have with the way corporations are formed in our country. With B Corp legislations, it allows the company to form and say, hey, not only are we going to maximize profit, but we're going to maximize social and environmental good at the same time. It doesn't mean that we don't care about, we're not nonprofits. Stoke is very profitable. We're doing well as an organization. All those companies, New Belgium, Danone, very profitable organizations. But no one's going to sue them if they make a decision that benefits their stakeholders, builds their community, reduces their environmental footprint. And while this isn't the point of this presentation, I can show you some other organizations that are doing some really cool stuff if people are curious about how companies that do good do better, and how they're outperforming the S&P 500 on the stock market, companies that have higher social ESG scores, social environmental governance scores. And this was an example I was referring to earlier, just John Mackey. Man, I wish I had been a B Corp because things might have turned out a little bit differently. When he got that offer from Amazon, he had to do it, right? But if he was a B Corp, maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he would have done things a little bit differently. Okay, so what's it like to get certified? What's the process? So there's three components. There's the social environmental performance, right? So you take a B in PAC assessment. You have to have a minimum of 80 points out of 200. I think you saw in that example I gave earlier with Eileen Fisher and Ben & Jerry's. They were starting out in the low to mid 80s, and now they're in the, I don't think you see scores that are much higher than like 120. It's pretty hard. Unless you're my company has a pretty decent score, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that we are a sustainability consultancy. We're helping our clients take carbon out of the atmosphere. And so if your business model itself is built around sustainability, that's a really good starting place. But it's not everything, there's certainly a lot more governance and hiring practices, and a lot of it has to do with HR and how you're working in your community and how you're sourcing locally. And are you a green certified business? Are you buying the right green cleaners? What else can you do? Okay, so the next step is accountability. So you have to adopt once you get approved. For Stoke, it was something as simple as putting a paragraph on our operating agreement, because we were certified. For others, it's becoming a benefit corporation, which it's a big step, right? Changing the corporate form of how your company is organized. And then if you're a benefit corporation, you do have to produce what's called a B impact report. And so that's sort of like a monthly, like quarterly 10Ks, like a corporation puts out. It just says like, here's how we're doing. Like it's public transparency saying, this is what we're doing. This is how we're achieving our B Corp certification goals. Sorry, and if I said quarterly, I shouldn't have said that. The B Impact report is an annual report that benefit corporations have to put out. So this is the different categories of the assessment. The items in red are impact business models. So for companies like mine that are, my company does probably toxin reduction, right? Like we help our clients make buildings more energy efficient, which takes carbon out of the atmosphere, right? It reduces carbon. There's some businesses that are like Namaste Solar here in Colorado is it's a worker-owned co-op. Okay, so some of the red stuff is like sort of specialized business models. Everything under customers, can get you certain points. But then the stuff in black is just operational impact, right? Like, how many women do we have on the board? Is our mission centered around doing good and giving back and adding value to the community? How transparent are we about these things with our stakeholders? That kind of stuff. So, with each different category, what are we doing in our business impact? Do we have a big factory? Are we using a lot of electricity? What are we doing to mitigate those impacts, that extraction that we're taking out of the environment? So there's all sorts of categories that you can be assessed upon and get a benchmark and start improving. I think I already touched on this, but so there's the third-party certification, which is the certified B Corporation. Stoke is a certified B Corporation. Or a benefit corporation, which is an actual legal structure like a C Corp, a LLC, a corporation, right? So you can do either. Obviously, the one on the right is a lot more challenging. I think 37 states allow it, whereas I think most states allow the certification. So what's the roadmap? You take the assessment, you talk to your lawyers, you talk to your partners, and you make sure you're ready to do it. And if everybody's on board and it seems like something that's feasible, then you submit the assessment and you go through a verification process. You demonstrate that you meet the legal requirements. So we had to show our operating agreement with that paragraph on there that it's been signed and executed. And then you finalize your certification. So you sign the Declaration of Interdependence and pay annual fees. You know what? I wish I had those off the top of my head. I want to say for us it's maybe $1,000 annually, but I could be wrong. I think it might depend on firm size and all that. I can't remember. So here's the Declaration of Interdependence. Really, it's just like, what are we trying to do by being a B Corporation? So that's B Lab. That's our little quick stroll through the B Corp stuff, and then I was just going to jump in, Morgan, into some stuff about B Local.
I love
Colorado.
that. Yeah,
and then I was gonna maybe do like a little bit about my company, just really quick, just in case anyone's curious. But do you want to do questions right now on this stuff, or okay?
Let's keep on going. And if you have questions or curiosities, please drop them in the chat below. I know you would be more than happy to answer whatever's on people's minds around B Corps. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so as I mentioned, and I think the reason Morgan reached out to us to present is I am a member of the Be Local Colorado Board of Directors. Be Local services approximately 120 B corporations in the Colorado, and actually, we have people in like, I know they're trying to pass a legislation in New Mexico right now. We have a bunch of people down there that are part of the group, but they haven't passed legislation yet. There's some in Austin, there's some in Salt Lake City, Wyoming, but mostly Colorado. Honestly, mostly Boulder. Not surprising, right? So we're an industry group that a lot of people call it like their tribe, or they have a place to meet and gather where there's others like us. And how do we support each other as businesses? I'll tell you, I found my lawyer, Moy White, through Be Local Colorado, and my company's based in San Francisco, and when I came out here to sort of open up the Denver office, I was like, I'm going to get all the professional services out here because they're like a third the price is what they are in the Bay Area. And so I started looking for, CPAs and lawyers and all that through this network. And a lot of the B Corps actually offer each other discounts. So we get a 10% discount from our lawyer, which is a pretty significant reduction in cost. When I get a $5,000 invoice and it's got $500 taken off of it, that's pretty sweet. And that was not hard math for me to do, to figure out to pick them as a client or as a vendor. And so that's an example of how, we look to support each other. And so something that I'm working on right now in my role as the Strategic Partnerships and Governance Chair is this new event we're putting together called the Changemakers Coalition of Colorado. And what I've done is put together a group of people doing good in Colorado. And so we have Good Business Colorado. I'll start at the right side. I don't know why I'm doing that, but I am. Good Business Colorado is a legal and sort of like litigation advocacy group that right now, like, for example, what they do is all their members, they sort of like, they lobby on their behalf. So they take a bunch of small businesses who want good things to happen. For example, paid family leave. Like, that's a big one that they're working on right now. And you become a member, and then, they send out, they even give you an opportunity to like go and speak to your congressman on behalf of the organization, or, how do you get active in the legal community to make positive change. And so we've partnered with Good Business Colorado, two different programs out of the University of Colorado, their Masters of Environment program, and then also the Center for Ethics and Social Responsibility, which sort of works as like a liaison between the business community and the sustainability focused MBAs and the Masters of Environment students. Students who want to have a career in social and environmental impact. They work with the business leaders to, for example, I'm a MBA mentor right now for some of their MBAs, and I go and speak to them sometimes about what it's like to be a socially responsible business and that type of thing. And so we work with them, and they bring a lot of the content and presenters to this collaboration, Changemakers Coalition. Best for Colorado is actually, so this is an interesting, I don't know if people know about it. There's a group, it says a program of the Alliance Center. The Alliance Center is a co-working like hub for impact related type businesses that's in Denver. And this Best for Colorado program, it's actually a lot like the B Corp certification. What they do is they have companies in Colorado apply to sort of win in some of these different categories, like the ones I mentioned, environmental or social justice or community or governance. And it actually sort of acts as like a feeder into the benefit corporation, B Corporation certification. And so, this was actually created by B Lab and B Local Colorado, and then got transferred to the Alliance Center. But it's a program that they manage. But we work really closely with them because they help a lot of aspiring bees out there to become better. So this group of people is putting on a quarterly event. Our first one is in September, and we'd love it if some of you folks could attend. It'll be a virtual event, obviously. And we're looking for sponsors right now, and we're going to have a diverse panel of members of our community, and it's going to be a really great event. The first one is called Building a Resilient Future Through Responsible Business. The goal is to come out with really action-oriented solutions to how can my organization go out and create impact right now. And then I think the last thing that I had prepared was just, maybe like a quick blurb about my company, if anyone's interested. So my company, like I said, we're a high performance real estate advisors, sustainability consultants, and we have 3 practice areas: sustainable building services. We do project construction management and real estate strategic and management consulting. We have a whole suite of engineering and design and other types of services like that. And there's one of our projects, the Golden State Warriors Arena in San Francisco. We do a lot of net zero consulting. A lot of our project construction management is really specialized sustainability type stuff like net zero or living building challenge. Some of the, harder sort of really high performance and high impact sustainability types of projects. And then, there's Subaru. I think I mentioned that to you guys earlier. So, a company might come to us and say, hey, like Facebook or Google or Apple or Twitter or Microsoft says, we have a bunch of buildings that we lease or own, it's a big part of our, footprint. How do we make it better? How do we reduce our carbon input and, electric vehicle charging stations and solar and, what do we do? And we help them figure it out and how to align it with their goals and values. So there's the B Corp certification for my organization. This is my colleague Devin. We went to grad school together at Presidio in the Bay Area. I don't know if you guys have heard of that place, but she's actually the one that works on that Subaru account. So I'll kind of leave it at that and open it up for Morgan. Do you have questions, or are you getting? Of
course, yeah, we can definitely just move into some conversation. I see a couple questions, and if you have them or comments, please drop them in the chat features.
Oh, I was looking at private chat. Here we go. Cool.
Oh yeah, or there's comments. So Dan was asking, and I have a couple of questions too. The B Corps that he's noticed seem to be activism supported by a business model. Can you get certified if you just, in quotes, want to be a sustainable or triple bottom line business?
Yeah. I think I know what you mean by that, Dan. And let me pull that. Let me go back to that slide.
Sure.
So I think maybe what you're saying, like these red items are like, yeah, they're like maybe like activist companies, but like if you're like a dentist office, like can you get B Corp certified, right? You're just fixing teeth, like, or if you're like a mechanic or you're a hair salon, right? Absolutely, yes. That's 100% who this is even more for than the quote unquote like activist types of business models. You could call my company, because all we do is sustainability consulting. You could call that activism, type business model. But like, there's plenty of law firms and, all just boring old like everyday businesses, right? Like, and that's what it's for, is for people who say, you know what, like, how can I make this better? How can I do better with my company? We're a grocery store. How can we be a better grocery store, right? And that's one of the sort of interesting things about the B Corp community is there's so many different types of businesses um, that I remember when I first started out, I was like, how am I supposed to network here? Like you got like, I mean, yeah, all these companies have buildings that you occupy. And so there's an opportunity there. But like, when I'm meeting like salespeople from like, like a place that like puts like your logo on like pens for like a conference, I'm like, this is like, where's our common denominator? And our common denominator is we're B Corps. And so we do try and create a lot of other sort of like little channels within the community, like whether it's, HR or, subsectors of like, food services or, real estate professionals. And over time, you just sort of find those people within the group. But yeah, we've got all kinds of businesses is the point.
That's awesome. So actually a question about service, more like, and I know you just talked about like dentists, but I even, or lawyers, but other kinds of like computer service or app developers, etc. I mean, I saw in that a lot of the examples that I see a lot of B Corps are product companies, breweries, Patagonia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like, how do service businesses or professional services find them? Obviously in the impact assessment, there's a lot of the governance side and how they're hiring and who they're hiring and how they engage in their community. But obviously if you don't occupy a building or if you're not having strong inputs in a supply chain, does that change the formula to becoming certified at the very least, or is that usually overcome pretty easily?
Not really, because you have employees,
Yeah.
you have an operating agreement, you have a supply chain, you have vendors, if you're like, yeah, I'm trying to think like if somebody's just like working at a computer at home, right? Maybe like a sole proprietor, I think it depends on the business model. Maybe it starts to turn into sort of like a marketing, like greenwashing or something. But what if you're looking for a better way to hold yourself accountable in your own business practices, right? And you're like, I don't really know where to start. Take the assessment. You don't have to apply. You can take the assessment and you don't have to pay to become a B Corp. You can just kind of see what types of stuff they're looking for. And so, without like, looking up like every different type of business model, I think just go, this, I was pulling this up. I don't know I guess you're not looking at my screen anymore, but I just, there's a find a B corporation.
Okay. Yeah.
And literally like what type you can filter by, sorry, my internet's going a little bit slow now all of a sudden. You can filter by anything. I'm looking for financial services. I'm looking for mechanic. I'm looking for whatever. So, it's not pulling up really quickly here, but like I said, you can come in here and just see like, who's on here, what kind of organizations, exist. I think what we did was we said, somebody came on here and looked at people from B Lab, and said, like, for example, they didn't find any in Longmont, so somebody out there, if you're listening, you can be the first.
Be the first. Hey, B. There's a lot of
mover advantage.
Good punny branding, right? Be the first. Anyways.
Oh yeah, they love that. There's like beekeepers and queen bees, and oh my god, yeah. It's bad.
I love that. Now, one of the things that you had talked about in similarly in that our certification area was about like transparency with stakeholders, and one of the things that I've heard a lot. I don't advocate this view, but there is there are some voices that say it's hard to draw a line around what it means to be a stakeholder. So do you have any insight around where businesses should think in terms of their stakeholders, or like how immediate or removed are those stakeholders from the business? That's just, something that has been thrown around in public discourse lately around stakeholder capitalism.
Yeah, and then you said something about transparency. Can you tie that in?
Oh yeah, sorry. And one of the things you had talked about was like transparency with those stakeholders is part of the certification requirement. So I was curious about like what that would mean for a business, what that transparency looks like, and who those stakeholders would be.
Yeah, it's funny. When we first started down this path, we thought, we'll just. So my company, like, we have transparent salaries.
Oh, okay.
And like we were like, let's put everything up on the website, you know. And I've kind of been burned by some like radical transparency. You know, I think the question with transparency is you have to ask yourself why. Why do these people need to know this? You know, and how could it? What's it going to be used? What's this information going to be used for? And so, you know, like with the case of salaries in my organization, people are like, "Oh, we could never do that in my company," and I'm like, "Well, we didn't just like print out a report and show everybody everyone's salaries. You know, what we did was we created a very clear process for how you get that salary. And so then when people see that so and so makes this much, they know why. You know, if you want to make that much, you have to do this, 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 and this. And it's like, oh, well, that's fair. Okay. And so, you know, it's funny. One of my partners got up in front of the company and he said, "I love my wife a lot, but I go to the bathroom with the door closed." You know, like she doesn't need to know everything, right? And it's true. Like we talked about this the other day with we have a clear pathway to ownership in my company, and one of the employees said, "Hey, can you know?" He listed off all this stuff. You know, if I want to see what I'm working for. You know, what's the value of having equity in this company? You know, what's the return on investment? Who owns how much? What decisions do people make? You know, down the list. And I was like, okay, let's talk about that. You know, I was like, I think it's a very good thing for you to know how much the equity grows as a percentage year over year. But I don't think you need to know who has the most powerful vote in the company, or you know, what a specific individual's units are worth, right? Because that just allows you to like look at people's financial situation, and what else are you going to do with that information? You know, like, does it matter who has the most power to make a decision to you, who's not even really part of that process? Not really, right? So there are some components of transparency that through this process we've sort of had to go back and question and be like, what's the purpose of this? Why are we really doing this? With regards to the stakeholder group, I think that's such a personal question, but you know, I don't know. Like it's funny. Like you can go through this process and check a box and get B Corp certified, and then you're like, cool, we did that. Let's move on, right?
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. Or you can like really try and use that like it's designed as a benchmark where you can measure yourself and improve over time and constantly push the boundaries. And the stakeholders are the ones that push us to do that, you know, the employees first and foremost, right? So I said that they came to work for us because we're a B Corp, right? And now they're here and they're like, well, what are we doing about, right? And it's like, ooh, I hadn't thought about that. And I gotta be honest, man, sometimes it's really frustrating, you know, because it's like, isn't this enough? Like, aren't you happy? Are you not entertained?
Yeah.
You know, Black Lives Matter was a great one. They were like, where's our response? What are we saying? We got to do more, you know, like, are we really an anti-racist organization? You know, where's all the black people? We don't have any black people in our company. And it's like, well, we're trying, you know, we did the inclusive economy challenge with Be Local, and right. And we've changed a lot of our hiring practices. We've changed the way we're writing our job descriptions, you know, but it's not enough. You know, people were like, it's not enough. You know, we have to change the industry. We have to change recruiting and like the high school, the college pipeline. We have to create programs. I mean, you know, the stakeholders are definitely the people. Like once you go down this road, people are going to expect you to walk the walk. And that to me, that's one of the more challenging aspects of it. With regards to like, we do have some like investors in our company. You know, they're not activist investors. They're like real estate people who we knew, and they thought we had a good business and wanted to invest and make some money. And that's
That's about it.
Yeah, and you can do both, honestly. Like I said, businesses that do good do better. There's tons of evidence out there to show that, when you look at the stock market. So, vendors are another group of stakeholders. Again, like somebody needs to own that, right? Like, so, we have office managers in our company, and it's like, when we do the B Corp assessment, it's like, well, where are you buying your products and who are you buying them from? And it's like, I don't know, well, what's our process for that? How do we vet, when we go to look for a recruiter or a lawyer or someone to sell us pens, like what's our process? Because if we don't have a process, we're just going to go buy some big pens and call it a day. Right. But if we say, hey, we have to go to this supplier because they're local and they treat their employees well and they're worried about their carbon footprint and that's a priority for us. And that same kind of thing happens with the Black Lives Matter. It's like, I'm interviewing 3 executives right now and people are like, well, there's a theme here, and it's not the right theme, right? Like, what's our process for like even starting the conversation with people? How do we do better? And B Corp has a ton of resources for companies that want to do better. But I'm not trying to say it's easy. Hopefully you can tell, like it takes work.
Yeah, there's a lot of work involved.
But there's a big payoff.
Yeah. So do you have any insight to offer of like the benefits of sticking with certification versus converting to a full legal status? In Colorado, I know we call them public benefit corporations, but benefit corporations.
So
just like, what's the benefit of doing the headache of converting an entire corporate status?
So the way they've designed it, and it makes sense to me, is if you're like a C Corp or a S Corp and you want to get B Corp certified, you have to convert to benefit corporation within 3 years. So we're an LLC, so we can stay B Corp certified forever.
Okay.
But if you're incorporated as C Corporation or benefit corporation, you can't just like dip your toe in the water and just be like, yeah, we're cool. Like, we're just going to hang out right here on the edge. They're like, that's nice. Like, we'll give you a little bit of time, a few years, but you have to go in all the way. And what you're doing is you're saying, no, we're changing our entire operating agreement. We're changing all our legal and corporate form and all of our business practices. Like, we're actually committing to this legal structure. I think like the benefit report is honestly probably because I've thought about, when we've looked at like mergers and acquisitions, we've thought about switching to benefit corporation and I would do it, but again, there's some more work there, right? You have to produce this annual report, which means you have to be measuring and managing all these things and benchmarking them and showing, you have to tell people, hey, we're going to do this, and then you have to do it. Right? Yeah. And that's so now you have those stakeholders, right? You have the public. So yeah, it's a little bit more serious when you get into the benefit corporation stuff, and you can't not go that way if you have those 2 corporate forms.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, it looks like you did such a good job that nobody else has questions. Now, the last thing that I can drop into the chat is you said it was the Changemakers Coalition of Colorado. Where should they go to learn more about the September event?
Yeah, I have that page up here. Can I post in the chat?
Yeah, you should be able to. It's underneath the comments. Otherwise, you can just...
Doesn't give me a place to like. I can enter private chat.
Yeah, place it there. I can post it. Beautiful.
Cool.
Awesome. And that's, you said September 15th.
Yeah, we're calling for sponsors right now, and we're also getting ready to open registration. So yeah, be on the lookout for it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much, Burke, for joining us here at LSW 20. It's been such a pleasure to have you. And
thanks, Morgan.
everybody, we'll be back in just a little bit with Linda Phillips from Jason Weiner's law firm to talk about co-ops. So thank you, and see you in a little bit.
All right, thank you.